12th changes. And there is a question or two that's been showing up on a very specific type. Why NASA chose these, I don't know.
It's amazing.
Is the SPAC.
Crazy.
What do you think about it? Have you seen some SPACs out there?
I have. They were a fad, and I think to answer the question, that's why NASA incorporated this. They always are. All the regulators are always behind the curve. Once the fad has passed, is when they. I shouldn't say fad because with people who lost a lot of money in a fad. So that's what triggers NASA on this. And a special purpose acquisition corporation or blind pool. They've been around for years and years and years. And the big problem with them is a lack of disclosure, that it's a lot easier to raise money from the public with less disclosure by having a SPAC that goes out and acquires a private company.
Right.
And so that's why I think they're testing on these. It's one of those things where, the classical line from, the days is where are the customers' yachts?
Yeah.
In terms of the brokerage business. And this is usually the promoters that are making the money off these, and investors have been taken advantage of, according to NASA. So I think that's why it's on there. I think you should be, as an investor and as somebody who, if you're selling a SPAC or putting in a portfolio,
yeah.
Because remember, it's really based on the ability of the promoter or sponsor to go buy at an attractive basis an acquisition for stock.
Right.
That will work out. And usually they're willing to overpay because the reason they'd overpay, Brian, is if they don't come up with an acquisition, they got to give everybody back their money.
That's right.
And that's kind of hard thing to get back people money. So, if it's a closing at the last minute,
That's
I
right.
thought the debrief that you had was, I've now heard it since. And you always tend to get some good debrief. And I'm like, wow, okay, I've never heard that. In fact, you even asked me that based on that question debrief. I go, I have no idea. I would think it's whatever the market will bear, but not so. So you want to share that debrief with on
absolutely, of course. The special purpose acquisition company is a blind pool, often referred to as a blind pool, is basically a shell. They don't do anything other than go out and acquire companies, right? And of course, they acquire that company, they can do all kinds of things, and that's a whole different story. But they need to raise capital in order to acquire these companies. So what they do is offer shares to the public in the shell company, the SPAC. That raises capital to purchase, to acquire this other private company, public company, whatever. Now, because it's a shell company, it doesn't have any revenue. It doesn't have any earnings. So the lack of disclosure. So how do we know how much these things are worth? How does an underwriter value the shares? So that's why they fix it. They fix the share or unit price of SPACs at $10 per unit. That is a fixed price for SPACs. For those of us from Series 7, we often talk about how we value IPOs, right? Supply and demand, earnings, financials, fundamentals, all sorts of things. But we don't have that with SPACs. So the regulators have said, $10 sounds good.
Yeah, first time I've ever heard it was from your debrief, and
somebody said, how much are SPACs offered at? I go, and I thought the same thing you did, based on earnings. I go, wait a minute, they don't have earnings. I don't know. So I had to go do some research to actually find the answer to
you've got questions like this. I don't know if we're about 17 minutes in, and if you're watching our podcast series, I love little things like this, these nuggets, these golden nuggets in our podcast, because I'll tell you what, when I take a test, Brian, I always like to get to the first question I know the right answer to.
That's right.
Hopefully I'm not like 15 deep. I'm wishing for our 66 test takers. Question number 1, what is the IPO price of a SPAC? Woo! $10.
I kind of think this is